Now we have to
She's gonna take a nap, you know? I didn't get mine today, but, you know.
Don't say that.
But
We both done it.
Yes, you have.
I take mine before the meeting, not during. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's school board meeting. Today is May 10th. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public participation. We have some people here in the audience, so anybody that would like to come up and discuss anything, feel free.
Did you want to do that, or did you want to do it as part of the?
He can speak now, and then, or he can participate. I have no problem him speaking during the topic. So if you want to speak now, and then add some additional things when we take it up under old business, go ahead. You want to go up to the mic and state your name and the street you live on and the town you live in for the record?
And you do have one by email too.
Okay, good. Good. Go ahead.
My name is Brian Stoll. I live at 15 Lawrence Lane here in Farmington. I would like to discuss the co-op for the Farmington soccer team. I know it was discussed earlier. I just wanted to bring up some points where I believe that I believe it's going to be beneficial for us to do the co-op with New, even if it does push us into a D3 status. I believe that, one, it's going to open up a girls' team for us. Two, it's going to provide us with a full men's varsity team. So I don't know if any of you know, last year we played all men's varsity teams. We had 2 girls, we had 2 7th graders, and 2 8th graders to backfill the team. The kids learned a lot. They did absolutely incredible throughout the whole season. We won 1 scrimmage that we had against New. So our record didn't show the improvement that the kids made, but it was rough for them to compete with a full varsity boys side. I believe with this co-op that it'll help alleviate that. I also believe that the bulk of the teams in the D3 division will be competitive with. I don't think that it's going to be a detriment at all to the soccer program at all. That'll be up to me to make sure that they're in shape by the time that we get to those games.
So your capacity regarding the soccer team, you're a coach?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm the soccer coach for the high school team here in Farmington.
Okay. Good. And does anyone have any questions for the gentleman? Well, I do thank you for your input. I think we have somebody else online, and typically we're going to be discussing it shortly, and we'll allow discussion during that time. Thank you. You said we had somebody online?
You have an email that's arrived for the board on this topic.
Okay.
So this is from Jessica Parker. I can't attend tonight's meeting, but wanted to say, as the mom of a soccer player, I'm in favor of us developing a co-op with Milton for our upcoming soccer season. I think we need to have a full high school boys team, which our Farmington students can't fill, eliminating girls and middle schoolers. I also like the idea that with this co-op, some kids from Milton will have the opportunity to play where they won't without it. Thank you for your time.
Any other public discussion?
This is coming up later in the
Right.
agenda,
Yes.
though.
Yes, on the agenda. Like I said, I'll entertain any additional discussion at that point by any member of the community, because the reason it got tabled, because some of us board members, didn't feel we had enough feedback or information to make a decision. Now, we have a workshop for ESSER funding, resume board meeting, but the board may want to change that to take some of this forward. while we have this discussion, because if we go into a workshop, we could be spending an hour or two. Would it make sense to move up old business before that workshop?
Sure.
Does everyone agree with that?
Fine with that.
Okay, so that being said, we will move up the old business, and the first topic is soccer co-op decision. So we're going to continue with this topic discussion. Eric, if you could please come up and address the board, because we'd like to hear your opinion.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you for this time. I'm here to talk about or discuss further along the boys varsity co-op along with a girls JV co-op with New High School. What happened is we brought it back, I think it was, I can't remember, November. We made a ruling that we'll go forward with the co-op pending that we're able to stay in Division 4.
Yep.
I brought that proposal to the soccer committee, who then brought it forward to their classification committee, who then ultimately decided that, yes, we will award the co-op. However, that with the bylaws that are stated clearly in the co-op agreement where the co-op takes the total enrolled numbers from each school and puts that into classification cycle, and that's how teams are determined what division they're in. So you take your total enrollment, and that ultimately places you what division you compete in. Farmington's about 250, Newt's about 130, that totals about 380, if my math's correct, I think it is. And that puts us basically in the middle pact of enrollment numbers for classification cycle. So with that, they awarded the co-op, but they denied the petition to go down, because ultimately it is a petition to go down to Division 4 for this coming year. In the next years, we are allowed to petition down to Division 4 in the next cycle with the new co-op agreement, but we have to redo that petition just to go in Division 4. Yeah.
Joel?
When is the next cycle? Next year or the year
Yeah,
after?
next year.
So we're in the middle of a cycle.
Yes,
So that's probably half the reason for a denial right there.
Yeah. So, and then something that's new, to consider is the new petition laws they actually changed for this next upcoming cycle is, so if we're in Division 3, based on enrollment numbers, that's why that dictates that, is if we petition down and are granted it, we are tournament ineligible for that first year. And then that next year for that cycle, if we do make the tournament, then we have to go back up to Division 3.
Yeah.
So they changed that, so it's really because in the past they've deemed that petition, where a lot of teams are petitioning down based on enrollment numbers, they're having a lot of success. So that's some of the reasons why they did that. So I'm here today to really ask us to reconsider the motion we made in November to allow us to continue our co-op and compete in Division 3. Because I think ultimately that's what's best for our program, understanding that the Division 3 and 4, competition-wise, for me, it's not going to be too far off once we get our feet going and get our program going, getting some success. I think it's something that's going to be really beneficial for our program. That will help entice numbers so we don't have to use our 7th, 8th graders to fill our team, which has happened in the past 2 years that I've been here. Our ultimate goal, in a perfect world would be that we have this, we do this for a couple of years, it builds interest in numbers so both programs can split back out. That's the whole goal for co-ops.
So if we go to Division 3 and we're relatively competitive, would you even look for a petition to go down?
Ultimately, no, because especially with the new petition laws where it states that we'll be tournament ineligible that year we go in, which is a big.
So really, you would only consider it if we weren't able to be somewhat competitive? Like say if we join the co-op and we're 0-1. I mean,
Ultimately, yeah.
you know what I mean,
If
or
it-
whatever,
yeah.
you know, we basically maybe, but if we're reasonably successful to be able to be competitive, then we should probably stay there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tim?
Have we gotten any feedback from the students that want to play soccer?
From the co-op, I didn't do any.
No, from our students, have we gotten any feedback?
Yeah, I didn't do any survey or get any direct results from students. I know they want to. I know they from the feedback from them from this year is they really like. They're disappointed that they have low numbers. At times high school is disappointed that they have to really coach and try to mentor those 7th, 8th graders to get them to be competitive at the high school level. But no direct feedback from type of survey or anything like that.
I'll make a,
Hold on, Joel?
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to make a motion to recommend the soccer co-op.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to point out, Eric, you mentioned this, the last 2 years we've had to pull up sub-varsity players. It's actually, I believe, been 4 years. I think
Yeah.
2 years that Cheryl had to do it and ask the NHIA for permission, and then the 2 years that you've been here. So this has been a trend. It's not just been an anomaly that it's 1 or 2 years that we're low on numbers. We've been low on numbers for a while now.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I certainly want kids to have the opportunity to play. And if we're not going to be able to stay in Division 4, I'm certainly willing to give it a shot in Division 3, and hopefully the team can be competitive so that the kids feel that they can, succeed in this division.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to that that when we used to have Middleton here and those numbers gave us enrollment higher. That's kind of how we were in Division 3 back then. The whole idea of once your numbers go up, it's over time, you hopefully stay competitive.
Any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, for the record, Mary Barron is not with us tonight. Hopefully she'll be back at our next meeting, but she is excused.
Can we get that phone?
Oh, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the laptop RFP. I think there is in the folder, there is a draft RFP under RFPs. And I don't know if, hopefully the board's had an opportunity to look at it. Hopefully the changes that we asked for were in it. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the laptop RFP conditional upon what we said before, and that the solicitation goes to Dell Direct Government Bureau that deals with these type of contracts.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? So the condition of that was that it went to, did you get that, Ruth Ellen? To Dell?
Well, it's to make sure that it goes to them as well.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. In addition.
On page 3 at the bottom, says equivalent models accepted, and also any different models or brands that are bid must have the same specifications, and the alternate brand/models must be clearly stated. Could it be same specifications or better? If
Yes.
they can compete with the price, and equivalent models or better accepted?
I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
Who seconded the motion?
I did.
You do.
Okay, so it's been amended to revise that to equal or better. Maybe not be able to use words that they used. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next discussion, the next topic discussion is generator RFP. It's also in the same directory.
I just got a question for Brian, if I may.
Go ahead.
Brian, in the RFP, one of the cost items that we're listing out is transportation of the generator from Lee to here.
Yep.
Can we do that as an itemized bid so that We've had a company come forward saying they're willing to donate their services with the crane to move the generator. They've looked at it and they can do it, so that transportation may be worth taking the donation, it may not be, but if we break it on into segment on the response,
Yeah, we can break it.
Yeah,
The only issue I would have is, if the timing doesn't work out, it's gonna be a huge headache.
it'll work out.
Well,
So you may want to specifically say, this needs to be broken out because services may be, the school, we may be able to provide that in general, so they need to break that out. Because I don't think you want it totally broken out, because,
the transport also includes the removal of fuel, and putting it back in, does I understand?
Yep.
The-
Yeah.
so yeah, just specifically, I think all we need to do is call that out, so that we're not piecemealing the whole thing.
That, but it leaves you the option.
Right.
Right, it may be worth it to have the contractor do everything, but if it's a $30,000 cost and we're gonna get those services donated, then I think we look at the donation. So it's, you know,
Can do that.
And so one question is, I went through it quickly. We're accepting electronic and paper,
Correct.
and it's due by June 3rd. No
June.
exceptions.
Actually, it says June 10th.
Not hearing any discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
there's D through F, are there any of those actions that have to be acted on tonight?
No, actually,
No.
F, we were,
F,
I
yeah.
believe
he was
Josh,
gonna
we were
table.
looking to table anyway.
Yeah, I want to have at least a 5-minute discussion on Little Red Schoolhouse. Been given some information by staff I can give to show to the board regarding the meets and bounds of the property.
My only concern is with a member, that's an important local issue to the town, and with a member of the board being excused tonight.
No, I don't want to have any decision on it. I would just basically make reference to what Larry gave me.
Okay.
And so at this point, we'll take that up for at least a little bit of input.
All right.
Larry, on the way in, Larry had given me a survey done by Norway Plains by Randy Tatro, who's, as most people know, grew up here in Farmington and has quite a bit of knowledge, plus the surveying. And I'll pass it around for the board to look at, but it shows that building lot, shows some of the access easements by other buildings. And we may need to, there's some notes on it, I took a picture of it, but there's just some information regarding this where they have at least 3 different residences accessing their property through this property. So I know this came up when he had did this plan in
It was 2007, bottom right.
2007. So this parcel has a lot going on because of its over time. And these, I guess, encroachments have been existing for,
A while now.
yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
So I'll just pass this along so people can look at it. So you can just kind of take a look at it, and then I'll make a motion to table that to the next meeting.
I'm going to make can you take a friendly amendment? My motion was going to be to table D through F under old business.
K, D, and DR were referenced in that policy that we need to start the code of conduct from. It's not they're referenced in the policy that we need to start writing the code of conduct from. We can write around them, but just to make sure that you're aware that those dovetail. So,
If we can
can
put
do
it
it
off
next
a
week,
week,
that's
I'd
fine.
like to see it on next week's agenda.
okay.
Second.
I withdrew my motion, so Tim stands his motion to table 3. Any other discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any new business before we go back to our workshop?
Do we want to take that up now, or?
Yes, I'd like to take any new business because we have some people here. So anybody has anything for the board?
Motion to end the all Farmington School District masks mandates outdoors effective immediately.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that.
So, based upon that motion, Josh, how do you see that being implemented by staff?
Staff will no longer enforce mask mandates outdoors.
As far as any activities outside?
Yes.
Resource,
Correct.
recess, field trips,
All of the above.
mass breaks, getting on and off the bus,
Correct.
Prom,
prom,
that's outside.
okay?
Correct.
I'm just asking for
Yeah, that's,
clarification.
I'm asking too.
Good.
Yep. Yep.
Just, there's a motion on the table, and we want to make sure that if it passes, that
Understood.
everyone's clear. Discussion.
Can I make a friendly amendment?
I'll consider it.
Unless a student voluntarily wants to wear a mask.
I'll accept that.
Diana?
One question, how that would work for our upcoming job fair, because we've invited people and have also
Right.
shared our COVID protocols, which would involve wearing masks, so we would have to send out to all of our, I think, 35 organizations that are coming, if this changes, that we have indicated that students won't have to wear masks. So I'm not sure what I don't know what these different businesses' thinking would be on that. If you would make an exception for the job fair, because we've been bringing people with the understanding that at this point, we're following a masking mandate.
Do you think anyone would pull out if there weren't a mask?
I have no way of knowing
Well,
until we share that.
I think as of May 7th, the governor changed his,
It's voluntary for business effective May 9th, I believe.
Which is yesterday.
yesterday. So far as the state precautions, it's no longer mandatory for businesses to maintain any protocols. It's on a voluntary basis.
Right, but we've been mailing out
Right.
with our confirmation information what we plan to do
Right.
for COVID protocols in terms of, how people are entering, the screening,
What's the date of the job fair?
the 21st.
Okay. I'll amend my motion to provide an exception for the job fair if it's infeasible to hold the job fair.
So I guess my question is, why would it be infeasible? Because currently, by the state governor's order, it's no longer a mandate, so it's voluntary on a business by business. So if we no longer require masks for outdoor events, it's still voluntary for anybody that wants to come here and adhere to any guidelines as they wish. We're not saying you can't do it.
Right, but we had invited them under the understanding that
Right.
we had already said that our students would be wearing masks.
And so some
That's all.
businesses may not want to come if those that they're going to be addressing aren't masked.
And some people may not come, or may not have chose to come because they didn't want to comply to a mandatory mandate.
Well, we haven't heard that.
Right, but,
That's-
because that's the way you put it out, but, it's Josh's motion, I'm okay with it not being a requirement regarding the job fair, because that would be consistent with, if the motion were to pass, consistent with what the governor has done, and what this.
Question at the job fair. Can we leave that to the discretion of Diana in that, if she gets a significant amount of feedback that says, hey, I'm not coming if I don't have to wear a mask, and that's going to affect what they've already worked real hard to put together.
Right. I think I worded the motion so if it wasn't feasible to hold the job fair.
But that should be, I think,
At Diana's discretion.
Exactly, versus us, yeah. Or
And
the
I'll
superintendent.
get feedback from our people to find out if
Yeah.
it's been an issue.
So the motion, can you restate it, Josh?
If you
I
choose
think
to do so.
Tim's intent with that is to make it explicit that
Yes.
voluntary mask wearing is still.
Okay, I
Right.
think we don't want to, if somebody feels comfortable only wearing a mask, we want to encourage that comfort is kind of what my
Right.
perspective is on that.
So some people may say, I can't wear a mask, because they make the wrong assumption. That's where if it's included in the motion, people could say, they would address their concern, well, can I still wear a mask? It
Right.
states that it's you can do that voluntarily. I think that's why Tim made that friendly amendment, which was accepted.
Right.
And
So
this
as
is,
far as the job fair, it's at the discretion of the superintendent with consultation of the people working on it, Diana and staff.
and this is outdoor only.
Correct.
And can I just ask, so I understand the governor's orders, this is not in conflict with anything the CDC's putting out to us or anything like
The
that?
CDC has still recommended that schools continue to mask.
But do they specifically say outside?
They don't, they just said continue to mask. So they haven't really delineated.
From what I've seen, all recommendations for outdoors have pretty much been lifted. Now, whether that has been channeled directly to school districts, that's up for debate.
Yeah, who channels it? Do you get it straight from them?
Typically, what we get is through DHHS.
Oh.
DHHS has not said, stop masking.
But he has to, the DHHS has to follow basically the direction of the executive orders from the governor regarding this
Which is separate from
Pandemic, right?
CDC.
It's separate from CDC.
right, separate from the CDC, which is a national organization. Tim?
I just want to put the caveat out there, and I didn't check today, but the last time I checked, our Farmington cases were down to 7 cases out of 7,000 people. If for some strange occurrence we get this big wind-up of cases, the board's going to look at it, and we can take the proper action and say, hey, you know what, maybe we need masks again 2 months from now or whatever. It's a day-to-day activity, but I'm in favor of the outside. And then I have another question, because we may be able to tackle it with this process. And my question to the superintendent is, from September to now, we've been very diligently screening at all 3 of our buildings as our students come in. At one point in time, when I think it was the middle school kind of had an influx of some cases, there were cases that we weren't catching during our screening. So I guess my question of you is, from September to now, when we've been doing the screening, have we prevented spreads by catching kids potentially entering the building with symptoms, or is it a recommended process that we've taken because it was recommended to us, but we've really not seen any fruition?
I don't know that I can say that it's been particularly prescriptive or that it's prevented specifically. I mean, we've had parents that it's kind of raised their level of diligence, and we have some that are actively screening those kids every single morning. I know full well that there are parents who roll over and kind of go, yeah, you're probably 98.3 today, and, may never get anywhere near a thermometer. I can't do anything about that. I just have
So I guess
I'm saying that my kid doesn't have symptoms today.
my comment is, and I diligently fill out this form almost every morning. Sometimes I even put my own name on it.
Yeah, we have that too. You're not the only one.
So I guess are we at the point now where we say, we don't need to do this anymore, and put our personnel back out in the courtyards when the kids are outside, et cetera, is my question. Or do we continue the internal screenings with the personnel to the end of the year?
I would like to take it to my admin team this week and bring that back to you next week.
Okay. I'm good with that,
Okay.
because I don't have the answer, I'm asking.
Yeah, and
But-
I don't have a good response for you either, and I'd
Okay.
like to talk to the ones who see the kids on a more direct basis.
Yep, that's awesome.
And just to be clear, this is for everyone, students and staff,
And
What about
fans at
visitors?
games?
everyone.
Any other discussion on the motion?
So that was a yes to everyone, as far as the screeners?
This-
His question was, does that include staff and fans?
I thought he was talking
No,
about
no,
his
he's talking
motion,
about his motion.
Okay,
not my
yeah.
question, his motion.
Clarifying my
Okay.
motion.
So the motion does include all of that?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what Josh has stated, for the record.
that's what I was double checking. Okay, thank you.
Can you speak English, Josh?
We'll get there one day.
We might have a class for that.
Sure.
Seems to me I taught at least one.
Summer school.
You never know, brush up on the English language.
Call the question?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. 4-0. Any other new business? Okay, Rustella, you don't have any other business for us? You sure? Usually have something.
We're gonna save it.
You gonna save it?
You got enough coming.
Are we in this room for the workshop? Or
No.
was- No, we're staying
We're going
here.
to keep it up as a public meeting, but
Yeah.
adjourn for the workshop.
Well, you're gonna recess and
Recess.
then, yeah.
And then-
So, do we want to hold, we do have, in this agenda, which that I'm responsible for, is kind of a, we haven't really followed, so at this point, should we have our last public participation before we go into our workshop?
Or do we want to include an additional public session for the ones that want to stay on and hear a discussion on the budget that they might
Yeah, we
want to
can add
put that
another one.
afterwards?
So at this point, I will open it up to public discussion, if anybody wants to have any discussion before our break, before we go to our workshop. Don't rush up to the mic, but,
Brian, do we have anyone?
okay. So at this point, I'll make a motion to recess.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was prepared for Dottie, huh?
Yes, I found it in some, I think it's been presented once before sometime, the thing that I found.
We had him revisit that a few years back.
Yeah, when I first came on.
Because, and just so you know, well, we still have people parking there.
I know,
But
I've also taken-
remember what the insurance company said.
I know.
Taking the no parking signs down and the fence down.
He was actually looking for his math homework from high school, and he was digging through his desk.
He probably-
Back on.
Thank you.
Okay. So welcome everyone back. We're kind of in the same mode but different. We're just going to have a public workshop with discussion regarding the ESSER funding. So at this point, I'll turn it over to staff to start it off. Where you want us to start with as far as documents?
Well, it should be a listing of all the grants in the folder. What I did was I listed them in order of when they came in. So we have ESSER 1, SBSRF number 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3.
No, you have there's two documents in the folder.
Well, someone opened his PDF and created another document out of it, but you want the PDF
Okay, the
that Brian
PDF.
put
Yeah,
up.
the other one's hard to read. Did I do that?
Yeah, look like
Your
the
name and
was on it.
Charlie's are both on it, so we.
I did open it.
I opened it, but
I did open this and said, this doesn't look like the same one I did before, but
Yeah.
it could have been me. I'm new to Google Docs, so,
That's okay.
and usually my method is crash and burn to learn it, so
So nothing blew up, we're good.
So basically what I do is I listed everything for each grant, like, for example, everything that has not either been spent or has not been spent yet, but is allocated. SBSRF 1 was the first one that we blew through because that had a timetable of 12:30. to get through, so we spent all $158,800 of that. ESSER 1 funding is already allocated, so we have nothing left there. ESSER 2, we have a lot of estimated ones in there because they still have to go out for bid. We haven't gotten back yet, figured out exactly what it is. For example, the HVAC for Henry Wilson, generator, ESY expense is actually our additional costs from the summer, for the teachers and paras and staff that are going to be on. So that basically fills up ESSER 2. ESSER 3 has a set aside of 20% for academic. That's why you have the little red box on the side with the red writing.
Yeah.
We have to spend a minimum of $806,180. Right now, we have budgeted allocated $874,000 towards that, so that at least fulfills that, because that's the minimum we have to spend. And that's all the red writing under ESSER 3. And again, we have some estimated ones in there too. For example, the LMS system, what I'm trying to do is stretch that out over the course of 2 years, because as you go down.
The LMS system, which is?
The learning management system.
Learning management system.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is, if you look underneath each one, I'll show the expiration date, and you'll see ESSER 1 ends this year, ESSER 2 ends next year, ESSER 3 ends in 2 years. So what I'm utilizing a lot of ESSER 3 for is to pay for 2 years of truant officer, 2 years of a social worker, 2 years of ELA teachers, interventionists, things like that. So that's what I'm utilizing that for, and fitting the requirement of the academic set aside that we have to do.
Now, on that learning management system, when, because this is something that I think the board wants to purchase sooner than later.
It appears in two places. The LMS system under ESSER 1 is for purchase and getting it up and running, having them do the data dump to get the information in it so that we have the basics there. Now, that doesn't mean that we have everybody trained. It doesn't mean we have it, but at least we have the shell ready to go. And then what you see under ESSER 3 is the 2 years of ongoing service, because it's going to be around $9,100 a year for the ongoing maintenance contract for that. So the first part is just purchase, data dump,
Kind of like a turnkey.
and getting it on. Yeah, that's
Right, so if we back up to ESSER 1 fundings for the LMS system, which we haven't selected yet, does that $75,000 cover both of the recommended ones?
It covers the recommended ones, yes. And we do have a leaning where we're looking, and that's really, it's based more out on that leaning, but that hasn't been brought to you as a formal
Right,
recommendation yet.
and the laptops is an estimate because we haven't got that back. So those two numbers are in flux. The IT upgrades are also recommendations,
The IT upgrades are
or they've been done?
upgrades that are in progress, are about to be in progress, and they were going to go towards grants anyway. So
And-
basically, I took that portion of it and put it in there.
And this board has motioned and approved those, the IT upgrades?
I don't know.
It's been presented as part of, here's what we need to do next. There's
Okay.
not been a formal motion on that.
Right, so, but we haven't spent the money yet then?
We have not
No,
spent
but it's
the
in
money.
process.
It's in the
Design.
plan and
Okay.
design stage.
Okay.
Yes, no, we did not venture without you.
Well, I just was asking.
Understood.
You say it's in process, I'm like, I mean, we might have, and
Right,
I'm just,
and there are pieces that had been done prior
right, some of this
to,
had
but
been,
that's not-
may have been approved incrementally
but that's
on
not
some of
this
that
case.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
But go ahead and continue, sorry for jumping around, but,
And then we moved over to ESSER 2, where we have, well, if you look at all of them, you'll see some yellow highlighted areas. The only reason why I highlighted those in yellow, and you'll see the key at the bottom, is those items, at least most of them, if not more, will need a funding mechanism in the future, meaning they will have ongoing costs. For example, the laptops are going to have to be replaced at some point. So we're going to have to, whether we set money aside in the CRF, or we have one big chunk of expense 4 years down the road, which I don't recommend, But I just want you to be aware that some of these are going to have ongoing expenses if you decide to keep them. For example, the truant officer,
So
social
if
worker.
we take the laptops on that thought process, what are we currently spending for equipment maintenance, for computers, for staff and students now? And what would be, if we replace this, what would be the incremental change? Because we're doing this now.
Well, we haven't been. We have never been fully one-to-one for students. For staff, we have, and we've
Right.
been on a replacement cycle of probably closer to 5 to 6 years, where it probably should be closer 4 to 5, because we've got some that are quivering on the edge of barely hanging on, but they're there. If we're looking at a 4 to 5 year refresh, we're looking at, the $90,000 divided out over, and that
That's just
that
staff.
price is, and that's just
Right.
It's not students.
that's just staff, and it's not all staff. It's the next portion of staff that hasn't received computers in the last go-round. It does not include special ed because they received them last year. I believe Valley View was already purchased in the spring rotation. So this is Henry Wilson and high school teaching staff.
Okay, so on the
Teaching staff and
laptops,
SAU staff.
if we're adding 90, I think the quote was for 90
Yeah.
laptops, but that was also including a 3-year maintenance program. It was going to be quoted as a separate line item. So we're good for 3 years if we go that way.
Well,
So
we
we're
should be
only,
good for
and if
3
we're on a
years,
4 to
right.
5 year replacement cycle, that's additional cost. Because you got a 3-year service warranty on laptops.
Correct.
So
Correct.
in a 4 to 5 year lifespan, you've got that maintenance that you're going to pick up for 1 to 2 years in this group.
Correct. And what's been done in the past has been kind of, which ones may have partially died but still have some parts that you can use to
You
do.
may still have that because it may be, okay, it's year 4, this one is out of warranty.
We're not
It's not
gonna-
worth fixing. We're going to keep it for parts and we're going to replace it.
Yeah.
A little prematurely, but we're going to replace it because that
Right.
makes the best sense.
Yep.
Other ones you may be able to limp
To
along
Franken
with some
part, yeah.
support closer to that end of that time. And you may have some that get into a 6-year period and are still operating fine and don't need to be replaced. So, I mean, it could
It
be a
happens.
5-year
Yep.
target and it could be on either side of that.
Right.
So there is some cost, I agree, but there's, I guess, where we've already budgeting and what is going to be the increase in these lines for maintenance or repair? I mean,
We've not had a set line for this much each year for staff laptops. We really need to do that. We haven't
Where
had
has it been
a,
coming out of?
okay, now we need to budget for the next chunk. Boom. It's not been a cyclical piece. It's been, this section has died, it's in the next budget. So we really need to have that replacement cycle.
So we do have a technology capital reserve fund.
We do. We do.
I think there's 100,000 in there now.
Actually, it's over 100
Yeah.
times. It's like
Okay.
20 maybe.
So we've got a significant fund now that, as part of our budget process at deliberative, we want a warrant article to deposit X amount of dollars in there that's going to cover both the student laptops and the staff laptops, because it's 90,000 for staff, plus what's already in the cycle, and then I think it was 150-ish for the student body, if I'm not mistaken. So we're gonna have to take those numbers, crunch them over a 4 to 5 year period, figure out what makes sense like we do with our buses, and deposit that money each year.
I compare it to what the town does with the assessment. They put the money away to do the assessment.
Yep.
Every little bit each year, and then when it comes, they just write one big check, and there you go, it's done.
And we're doing the same thing with our buses, and it's worked effectively.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most efficient way. There really hasn't been a long-term plan like that in the district before me, so.
I think that if we have a rough list of, or at least if I had a rough list of, these are the amount of total laptops we have for staff. These are the total amount of laptops that we're servicing for students.
Yep.
Then I could use those numbers to say, okay, this, and then say this is whatever there is for lifespan. You may have, okay, there's 120 laptop for staff. 90 are going to be new. This is the age and vintage of the rest. Then at least I could put a number on that I felt reasonable for replacement repair, based upon those numbers, and to say, okay, where are we going to get that? Because it may be that's a $15,000 a year number, or it's a $45,000 a
Right,
year number. I don't know what the total scope is that we have to service and repair / replace. We've just seen the new stuff.
As far as the laptops and the Chromebooks, really everything is new within the last year or two, with the exception of desktops. Because that's been where we've done.
And a lot of the
refresh.
Chromebooks have been purchased with,
The Chromebooks were purchased with the SPSRF. We had,
but with additional warranty and repair on some of them.
those had the 3-year on
So
them
that
as
would be
well.
important also to
And-
know, because then we could say, yeah, we're going to have them for 5 years, but this is
Chromebooks
really.
you may not get 5 years out of. You might.
Right, but this is the time that we're covered.
Right.
Some
3
of them are
years.
covered,
Yep.
3, some of them are not. I mean, we may have
Right,
some
and-
new
and we
ones that
have
1
some-
years old that's not covered, because we didn't buy it.
We have some that didn't have the 3-year because that's what we were able to get in when we got it, so.
Right. So if we can cultivate those numbers later, then I can at least
Absolutely.
take a stab at what I feel it costs.
If you want to invest in that too, not to interrupt Tim, but you want to invest a little bit in getting them to last a little bit longer. One thing we don't have right now that we really probably should be looking at is a real hardy case for a lot of these
The cases for the
laptops. Case,
Chromebooks.
because that's
yeah.
when most, especially with kids, or get knocked off a desk or something like that, that's where the damage comes from. And if they're in a case, when they do that, that's at least one
It helps. Yeah.
little thing that we don't have to worry about, which could be a big thing. Sorry.
So I guess the other thing on the consideration for maintenance, at least on the teacher's side, I get the kids, but we're talking adults. Accidents happen, but we're also going to have a certain amount of laptops in the field now that are still functioning properly. So say we're buying 70, I don't remember what the number is off the top of my head. So we're buying 70, but we're taking back 70 laptops from teachers. If 20 of those are still serviceable,
Right,
those
those
potentially
those
could
become the
become
loaners.
replacement if somebody spills coffee on their laptop.
Right.
So I think when we weigh out, and I know it's in the bid, but when we weigh out for the adults that additional accidental protection, depending on what that number is, do I want to invest it in that if I have spare laptops, or do I want to invest that money in education is the question that I'm going to have when it comes up. I've got another comment that I just want to put on the floor. Part of the ESER 3 funding requirements is that we have to commit to a committee. So I'm looking at the numbers that are on here as basic window opportunities, but as we go into our spending plans, does it make sense to look at the requirements of that committee and put that committee in place sooner than later? Because the bulk of the money that we're going to be spending, the $4,030,900 is in ESER 3, so before we make a concrete decision, we need that external community input as to what we want to do.
And because some of those positions are positions that we're going to need to advertise for if we're going to do them, I would agree that that committee needs to convene sooner rather than later.
I don't have an issue with that.
Do we, and I don't remember off the top of my head because I've read so many hundreds of pages on each one of the grants, as I'm sure you have. Can we find out what the requirements are of that committee and maybe post out in our social media and public forum that we're looking for volunteers to come forward? I guess, do we, putting a question, do we reach out to the budget committee and say, hey, we've got this committee, does anybody want to serve from the budget committee as a representative on the committee? Would they count as a member of the public? What do we need
What are the
for,
requirements?
what do we need for parental membership on the committee? So I guess if we don't have answers tonight, do we put the direction of, hey, let's for our next meeting, have Brian research what the requirements are of that, and we'll post accordingly to whatever the requirements are? of the federal money. It's a question,
Yeah, taking a quick peek here. Of course, it's not in the quick part, but yeah, we'll find that.
So if we go back to the different funding things, we were finalized on the SP, SRF, number 1, that's done.
Yes.
The ESSER 1, we have some place markers in there that are yet to be finalized, the laptops and the LMS. On the LMS system, that may be more finalized than the laptops and IT upgrades, because those haven't been, well, I don't know. I mean, it's still, those are in flux as far as what the total dollars are. I mean, you've got it coming out to zero, but it's,
Well, the IT upgrades are actually in 2 different grants,
okay.
so that's why I just got that one.
So
out.
is
Zero
the other
balance.
balance in ESSER 2?
ESSER 3.
ESSER 3, okay.
Second from the bottom.
So the balance of the IT upgrades are, so the total on that is 200,000 approximately.
Yeah.
So
Well,
whatever,
actually, I think it was like 199, I think was what it came out to be at one
okay,
point.
I was just estimating by looking at the 2 numbers. Sorry. But, so really, that's going to be, the filler is going to be the IT upgrades. Whatever the other 2, the laptops and the LMS
And
system.
those are fluid, we can move them
Right.
wherever they fill.
100% of laptops are in ESSER 1.
Correct.
LMS system, the purchase and the initial install is in ESSER 1. And the filling one, or filling, or backfilling will be the IT upgrades.
Correct.
So then if we move to ESSER 2, we have, now I'm just going to try to list, hopefully I get it right, which ones the both should be solid number. The 2 buses,
Yep.
we've already purchased. Bus radios, we've already motioned.
Yep.
Are they purchased?
They're purchased, they're not in yet.
Not
They're
in
not in
yet.
yet, yeah.
10 for prom, that's an estimate,
1,200.
1,200. Henry Wilson duct cleaning, that was motioned by the board to do.
Yep.
The, I lost the page. The next one was
control system.
the control system, which I believe we motioned to have done.
Yep.
Yes.
That's a quote. Door replacements,
That was when we talked about last week.
Yep.
He's still waiting to get back.
We have,
Right.
we have 1 quote, we haven't gotten the others yet.
okay, so that's an estimate at this
That's an
point.
estimate,
Yeah.
Portable radios were motioned.
Yep.
Air pur-
Purchased and purchased.
Motion and
All right,
purchase.
yeah.
Air purifiers is an estimate
Yep.
based upon one
Based upon 2
manufacturer.
quotes.
What's that?
Based upon 2 quotes, it's whether you want to
We
do,
did,
that can be kind of a floater too, because if you decide to do HVAC upgrades, you may or may not need the purifiers.
right. Because I was thinking the same thing with air purifiers and Henry Wilson
Now, with-
HVAC kind of rolled together, what that looks like.
Now, with the air purifiers, what's the intent? Is it to eliminate all pathogens from the building?
Yeah, I can share the specs to it. It's a lot of scientific stuff that I don't quite understand.
So are we going to create a sterile environment?
I don't, with the
I
number of
wouldn't be doing
people,
surgery in the rooms, but, you know.
with the number of people we have in the building, you're never gonna have a completely sterile environment. It's just not gonna happen.
Okay.
You've got kids. But if it could be a little less of a petri dish, that might be helpful.
I am test driving one in Larry's office, and he hasn't sniffled since we've started. So.
Well, we've got one
And it's very
case
quiet.
that's, sure, more than enough evidence to spend 200,000, right? So ESY expense, that's just,
Yes, but those are the additional pay increases that we've
Right.
put in there, and expanding the program beyond what we have currently budgeted. And then the transportation for ESY ends up in ESSER 3. And that's also an estimate, but it's a pretty close ballpark. We rounded up a smidge, so. That's the last.
and that is in ESSER 3
That's in ESSER
because,
3. Because it wouldn't fit in ESSER 2.
okay,
Yeah.
but it could end up.
But
over
it
that.
could end up, I mean,
Okay.
and all of that's kind of fluid. So, I mean, if we don't do the air purifiers, then transportation fits very comfortably into ESSER 2. But,
Now,
We're balancing a little bit because ESSER 2 has a little more freedom than the other ones. So that's why we're kind of picking and choosing what goes in there. Not that we wouldn't put something in there that was easy fit, but if we have something that would not work in ESSER 3, but it'll work in ESSER 2, then we're going
Put it in ESSER 2,
we may
yeah.
swap something back and forth.
ESSER 3 has more requirements as far as it also, 5% needs to be for summer programming. There are other pieces that have to be earmarked, so we need to kind of look more on those, or learning loss and summer programming. So all of these will hit that, but the academic pieces, some of them have to be even more targeted.
Charlie. So looking at ESER 2 and ESER 3, there's $3,500,000 towards,
500,000.
yeah, $3,500,000 to HVAC improvements. I understand we need the HVAC improvements, but one of the things I'd like to do is we've used a building consultant successfully. I'd like him to come in independently and evaluate our 3 buildings and give us an impact of what he thinks we need for upgrades in our buildings.
And are you looking at that being that particular consultant, or one who that's
The one
their
that
niche?
we used that did the Little Red Schoolhouse, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I don't think HVAC is his specialty. We actually have some HVAC people that specialize in that we've actually spoken to, that we might feel a little more comfortable with.
Which is who?
We had some people in town, what was it? I didn't even know remember his name.
One was Matt Roy. I don't have the whole list with me, but anyway.
Well, I think that we need to certainly get some help. And what we need to get help in is getting qualified people, those people that install HVAC here, and recommendations to us. And we
Right.
probably need somebody to facilitate that. Does,
Yeah, we want
Jet-
someone that can be a project manager as well as everything else, because this is going to be way above.
Right,
management
so,
skills.
I mean, really, what Jeff has done for us is construction management or oversight. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily he needs to be the guy, but we need to have somebody assist getting qualified HVAC installers, designers / installers, to look at what we have, what people are doing in the industry regarding COVID-19 protocols, whether they're doing UV, whether they're adding some of the air purifications in these systems, that we may not need the room purifiers, or they're still going to recommend that. The other thing that I've seen some information regarding, there's been, Tim and Ed had sent me some information, some forwarded. I don't know, did you forward that to Brian also?
I didn't.
There was some lighting manufacturers that have now incorporated through LED technology some disinfecting properties that I don't think is ready for prime time yet. But I think maybe before the end of ESSER 3.
And for ESSER 3, that, by 2023,
23,
we have to have everything
Right.
installed, done, invoices done, and fully paid.
So there might be something there that people are adding to it in regarding that. I mean, I think this is technology that's coming along, and I don't know what's going to be ready for us in this cycle. That's somewhere else we can say, okay, because, I mean, I'll forward that to you. It's pretty interesting reading. But it seems like there's some potential there that we could add it, and I don't know what the migration of technology is going to be, where it's going to be in the lighting or it's going to be accessory lighting. I mean, it may make sense if it's accessory lighting that does some of this disinfecting that may not be, I'm just doing some research on it, but it may be something that may be in the mix, and as the technology advances, that they could advance with it, because I think it's going to be more testing and to show what works best. But you may want to build that functionality into some of this, and that's why I think accessory lighting might be better. If we were to consider this, I'll forward it to you. It's just a thought, because that way, as the technology changes, it's not embedded into our lighting that we just spent a lot of money for. It's separate, but does the same function. So as technology changes, it might be an easy upgrade as it gets better. But that's something I'll forward to you, and it may be, hopefully some of that experience base will be in some of these people we go out to get solicit bids from.
And the same concept with the HVAC with Jeff, as I would use Jeff for guidance, but what caught my eye in this article is, last week we said we're going to discontinue LED until we get back to deliberative. One of the conditions of both grants is that disinfecting technology is payable under ESER. So my concept is, can we do an LED lighting project that incorporates the infrared lighting and have that paid with ESER funding versus leasing the technology like we tried to do over 7 years? So if it's qualified under ESER and we can pay that bill and it makes sense to do it that way, then what we've realized is we've paid that money up front. So year 1 through 7, which we'd be paying a lease, we're now seeing a savings in our utility bills based on the projections. So I had called Charlie and asked him potentially to get a hold of the vendor that came in here and did the presentation to see if that technology is what I'm envisioning these articles as saying it can do. Are we at that point? In the article that I read, there was some references to some tests that the U.S. military did that said
I just forwarded that to you.
it's
Yeah,
effective.
I have the package that they gave us when they were here. so-
I did forward an email. I forwarded this email and asked them, is this any technology they have in it? And I don't believe it is, but it could be added. But going through the detail of that article, what I took away from it was, I think that technology is in its infancy, and I wouldn't want to, it'd be great to have it added, but I think at this point, it may be more accessory, because as it changes, it may be no different than an in-room purifier where the technology changes, and that technology has now been outdated 2 years from now, because it's, and it's not a big deal to replace it. It's not a $500,000 item. It could be $100,000. I don't know. I mean, and it may not be ready for prime time yet from just a feel of that article, but it's something we may want to add into that might be a good thing to consider.
Of the presentations that we've seen in the last couple of years, I think the company who came in and presented last didn't mention that in their presentation, but it was part of what Siemens had talked about when they came in. They had also mentioned that. That was back, and I believe it was the presentation before this board came on. It was the one prior.
You're saying they had that in their lighting presentation?
They mentioned it when they did their overall presentation as an add-on that was possible, but it wasn't what was quoted that we had in our initial. And that was actually pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID.
I think if we hire a construction manager on a job like that, whether it's the lighting or HVAC, we need to hire someone who specializes strictly in that area, because they're going to know what's the latest and greatest and what we actually need. And they'll also be able to help write the RFP, which is going to be probably pretty complicated, as well as managing the Davis-Bacon rules.
Right. I don't disagree that we certainly have expertise, but we also have to get those people expertise here at the table.
Correct.
So we may need an interim facilitator or somebody to say, okay, this is what, assist us, and hey, this is who we should be looking at. That's the way I'm not set in stone any one way. But we certainly, that's a very big number, and we need to make sure that we have the best, the most information, or all the information before we make the best decision, because we're going to be living with this stuff. And it's great that we could offset some of this based upon this federal money, but we need to be fiscally responsible and also get what we need. And we still have some other things that we need to do facility-wise, as far as, heating.
But that can't be done under this grant.
I understand that, but we don't necessarily want to say, okay, this is what we have for heating, and this is what we have for ventilation and AC. Does it make sense that, based upon this federal monies, that we continue on the same path, or does it converge into potentially a system that might be better for us in the long term based upon what's out there today? That some portion wouldn't be covered by it.
Right.
But as we're looking at, no different than we're looking at some of previous proposal, one of them was to go propane.
Right, yeah.
For the boilers. But if we are going to completely redo our heating and ventilation system, it doesn't make sense that those could somewhat replace in the long term our need for our heating system, because they might be electric and heat pump based. I don't know how that stacks up.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do a heating and ventilation system for all those buildings, could you, and for that amount of money, completely redo it to a, heat pump system design? I mean, that's something that you got to
Right, yeah.
talk to somebody that's an expert in the field. And is that the way that that industry is going on buildings this size,
Right.
or they're not? And if it is, that's great. And maybe we'd consider. If it's not, well, we said that we're going to continue these two parallel systems where we have heating and we have AC and ventilation. Or is there some path that basically in the future they're all going to be one, and we should consider that now? And even if we got to pay some of it out of our own pocket, but if this is the way the industry is going, well, the technology is for these size buildings, then we should look at it now. I mean, I don't have those answers. And I don't know anybody to pick them up on the phone and get the answers, because these are large facilities, and, you're not going to get, a three-person business to take on this project. That wouldn't be wise.
I also would ask that if I can start working on this very quickly, because even though it seems like we have till 2023, that's just over 2 years away, and even if we had the ability to do the work today, we're a year away from getting a contractor in here, at least, the way they're going right now. Remember, we can only do the work in the summertime, for the most part, the major work, at least.
And being able to schedule that out.
2 years can come pretty fast.
So
Tim?
how are you going to work on it if we don't know what we need?
We got to find someone who's a expert in the field to come in and evaluate and analyze.
Which is what we're basically talking tonight. So I agree that advisor to the board is there. But I also want to put out the concept of, if we didn't have this federal money, as a board, would we be having the discussion that we're going to invest $3.5 million in our heating and air conditioning upgrades? And the reason I'm asking that is I'm looking at this budget, and I see 2 LEA teachers, 2 math teachers, or a 2-year math teacher at Valley View and high school. Everything else I'm seeing construction and renovation. Not seeing cleaning supplies for our buildings, and what does that cost if we need to continue the cleaning at the rate that we're going for the next 2 years. I may be wrong, but for the next 2 fiscal years, I'd like to see some type of after-school learning loss education. We bought the buses for that particular reason, so what does that cost? If we spent $52,000 this year on summer school, for the next 2 years, what is that going to be the projected cost?
Well, remember that you have an agreement that expires.
We do, but that number's going to be lower. The number's not going to be zero for the next 2 years.
It won't be zero, but we've had summer school budgeted in the general fund up until this point.
$18,000 for nominally special ed.
There's been
Some.
general ed summer school.
There's been some general ed students in there, but
And largely, Tim, based on the numbers of students that we've had who have been willing to come in, it doesn't always mean that that's the only need, but I also can't compel them to come in.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. And my other concern is we're investing a significant amount of money in a learning management system. And one of the things we talked about last week is, what's that vision? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years to get this into place, and do we hire experts that can help our curriculum director with this process to make it a smoother process.
This amount includes having that front-loading of the learning progressions put in there, rather than having the curriculum coordinator do that. It includes having the company front-load that for us.
In which number?
First
In
one,
the
that's the one.
75.
The ESER one for 75,000?
Yes.
Okay. But our accreditation report shows that our curriculum is all over the place, and that's an area that we have to get fixed. So as we're looking at increasing our curriculum to address learning loss and better education,
So
how do we add those support services in there?
one of the things that we also have available to us, which is not here, is under 2A, we can bring in consultants for professional development and for support in those areas as well. And so that would be tangential to this. It's also funding that we have. We typically have around 70,000 each year, if not a little bit more, that is available for that professional development and that consulting. So we didn't put that here, knowing that we have that also as a possibility. And I can't spend that on anything but professional development.
Yep. Okay.
So,
Which one?
Title
Title
2A.
Okay.
which is not on here,
Now,
but it's another
yeah,
funding source.
I mean, if we go to, oh, shucks, I thought it's in here. Hey, where is that? So there was something that was, we were copied on that was sent to the high school principal regarding NEASC.
The updated accreditation report?
Yeah.
That was right, and that was, it was giving us our
Right, but
date for our
that-
decennial
I'm looking for it
report.
right now,
Okay.
because I want to basically follow.
Our
up what's in
decennial
for-
visit will be in the fall of '22, because they consider our collaborative conference to have been in the fall. Now, our collaborative conference was in December, so it was fall, if you look at it as fall semester, but it was at the tail end of, and our visit would be tail end of as well, with the opportunity to petition, because everyone's been backed up with where we've been, that if we need to say, hey, we need a little bit more time, can we do it in the spring so that we've got this, we have that ability to do that.
Okay, so that was in a forwarded email, so I do want to reference that, because,
That was an email that you were copied on.
oh,
And then
not the entire board?
it was just you as chair.
Okay.
And then I think the follow-up, I don't know if you were included on that, but they had responded back to say it would be in the fall, that's 2 years later, but looking at later fall. And then clarification from Kathy Montenegro was that there would also be the ability to petition if we needed to have that tip over into spring.
So, yeah, could you make sure they put that so the rest of the board can see that?
I can do that.
Because I wanted to, if I can pull it up, I just want to make a point following up on, I don't know. It referenced that, it referenced the curriculum, and, I mean, it was somewhat a summary of what we were presented before, but I think it touches upon a thing that Tim mentioned, I agree with, is that we need to see how we can improve that, accelerate that, and for me, and help this, uses the funding for it.
But understand that there's acceleration, but there's still the work that needs to be done by staff. And you can pay to have some pieces done, but you still need staff on the ground using this. It's not just enough to say, it's printed, here you go. So,
I understand that, but still,
Yep.
this is something that, for me, it's clear in this letter that if we're going to accomplish this,
It needs to be done
needs to
sooner
get
than
done.
later, yes.
It needs to
And
get
I
done,
have-
and it needs to be done well, because the ones that benefit are the students.
And I have forwarded that to the entire board now.
Right, so when you read it, I mean, it talks about the same thing the report has, basically about the foundational elements, and where 3 we were not proficient at, or whatever term they used. One had to do with the consistency of the format through all the departments of the school. One talked about a current school improvement and growth plan, and the first one was talking about written document describing its core values, beliefs, and learning and a vision of the graduate. Some of these are more involved than others. Not that any of them are simple. I'm not saying that. And then they have some 5 priority groups, areas of growth. So when I read this report, I said to myself, okay, where are we going to be assisting this effort with these funds?
Understood.
And how are we going to do that? And how can we maximize the impact in these areas utilizing the funding that we have, whether it's, we have to get help to help our staff. So that help is temporary, based upon the funding being temporary, not going to give us,
Right.
it's not going to go into budgets past that. So how are we going to use this money to assist us in our goals, educationally and curriculum?
And so, and there's 2 pieces, so for curriculum under Title IIA, I can use that for professional development. I cannot use it for curriculum development. I can use it for coaching, I can use it for support for staff, but I cannot pay staff through 2A to develop curriculum to be writing those pieces. I don't know that ESSER is also going to allow that. They're looking at addressing learning gaps, which this is part of,
Yeah.
but I think there is a fine line there that I will certainly ask the question and get
Well,
it back in writing.
Even if it's not covered?
We still have to do it, Charlie.
Right.
There's no question, yeah.
So-
Yeah, no, I get that part. But just looking at, I didn't list it here under the ESSER grants because it falls into a gray area that I don't know I can pay for that out of here. But there are other pieces that are going into the ESSER grant that will free up other funding that can make that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that fully answered your question.
No, but, well, it does to a certain extent, but you understand, my point is
Yes,
agreeing with
it's a have to do.
with Tim. It's,
question.
you know, it's nice to have all this additional money so we can buy all new bright, shiny stuff, so we can feel good about our facilities, but the education, to me, we need to, especially with some areas we see that we need to improve in.
And I
So-
think, there's no question that we're in agreement. The direction that we felt we'd been given was
Right.
look at the HVAC, which is
Right.
why you see that here.
Right. And hopefully,
I certainly wouldn't, as a curriculum person by background,
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you. Yes, we
Right.
need to do that, and I'm happy
and
to.
hopefully when we get some, some experts assisting us, that hopefully this number gets a little bit more reasonable, so we have more money to go other places.
No problem.
But
But that may
They're
not be the
guesstimates at
piece
this
that can
point.
go here, just letting you know.
Right.
Still needs to happen.
still needs to happen.
Yes.
So some of it can come from here. I agree with Tim, with some expenses that we probably should earmark now, whether it's cleaning supplies, whether it's ESY, whether that's some other things that typically we're incurring now that may fall into years 22 and 23, maybe. And I guess educationally, we're adding 2 English language arts teachers, a math intervention, right? Is that what it's, into high school, and a math intervention in Valley View.
Correct.
We're also
And the math
adding,
intervention position, it's actually a math/ELA intervention position
okay,
for Valley View. And that is a position that is currently there now, funded under Title I, that we're looking to keep.
So, and then we're adding a social worker
Yes,
and a truant officer. Now, truant officer is a part-time position.
correct.
The social worker is a full-time position.
Yes.
So if we're doing that for 2 years,
It's a contracted position. I'm the social worker.
okay.
Full-time contracted. So
Right, it's a contracted service, yes,
Right.
but it's still 2 years.
So, but it's for 2 years. So how are we going to get to a better place at the end of 2 years so we may not need these positions? Because right now, these positions are in addition to our current budget.
They are.
So if we get 2 years out and says, hey, it's great and wonderful, now we've become used to having these positions, which is
180,000, 186,000.
no, it's a lot. I mean, you got one, social work right now is funded in our current budget. So you have 1, 2, 4 additional positions, right? Than what our current staffing is.
Because
we have the social worker.
Social worker we have, so it'll be two ELA teachers and a math interventionist that are teaching positions that we don't currently have, and then the truant officer is a new position. So the Valley View math ELA interventionist is a position we currently have.
So right now, this would be 3 positions more than we're currently funded.
Yes.
So if we have 3 positions, how do we get to a better place so that we hopefully don't need these positions? Because if we need them, then we got to go to the taxpayer and says, hey, oh, by the way, we're in this vicious circle of, we had this position funded through a grant, and now we want you to pay, which we know is in.
Well, the social worker you already did this year. That was
Right.
already working.
That's not in the
Yeah,
3.
that's-
Right.
Right. The
So-
truant officer is an addition,
Right.
and, I mean, I would love to be able to predict that, yes, we're gonna be able to do without a truant officer. I think the position may morph again,
Right.
but I think we're always going to need someone who wears
Yep.
that hat, whether it's a
Well,
separate
I
position or
agree.
not. Diana would be happy that it's someone else.
Right. I hope to be, based upon being successful in that, if we can be successful, that need is diminished
Right.
through
Or is it,
changes in our successes being
or is it a
a school
position that we
district
can
and
share with a
a
neighboring
town, and
district?
There's a lot of other
Yeah.
things that tie into that, but hopefully we're not in a position where we need that extent.
Correct.
And we've fixed some of the issues or resolved them so that they are not trends anymore. You know,
And the ELA positions are essentially positions that were consolidated and or cut through attrition a year ago with the budget process. As far as a need for specifically certified teachers in that position, I'd argue it, yes, it's a need. Is that something that moving forward, we can look at our numbers and our certifications and kind of morph that? There's a distinct possibility. If we have a shift and our numbers start to grow again, which with the housing market, that certainly could happen, we may find that our numbers show that we are needing more teachers than we have had in the past. We have had a downward trend since Middleton left. We'll see if that continues.
So where are we from the time point when Middleton officially left our district staff-wise to where we are today?
the total numbers.
Yeah. How much, what's the difference in the staff when Middleton was here versus the staff we're at today?
As far as number of teachers?
Number of teachers.
Yeah.
I will have to go back and grab because I wasn't here when
Okay.
Middleton was here, but I will grab that number for you for next week.
Where are we at this year? 'Cause I know what the number was when Middleton was
200
here.
employees total, including it. I mean, that's everything.
What's that?
200 employees total, top to bottom.
I
Okay.
want to say it's 205 or 6, 105 or 6 teachers.
Yep.
Which is,
46,
which is pretty
47
consistent to what the numbers were when Middleton was in the district.
We lost positions when Middleton left. I know that.
Okay.
But We'll get the numbers.
Let's see.
Yep, we'll get the numbers.
Joe, I see you thinking.
I'm just trying to think of those numbers in my head. It was a while ago, so I don't know. Trying to think of different positions that I don't think we got back, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you
I'll
think,
To try to come up with an answer right now, I'd probably be so off that.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and count. We can do that.
so, other discussion. Is Josh?
No.
No, we don't have Mary tonight, but,
I guess I'll put it out, just my position tonight is looking to move money around. I think one of the first areas I'd next would probably be the air purifiers and reinvest some of that money into student education / cleaning supplies. I don't think we'd be doing our due diligence as a board if we received all this money and didn't put any of it towards Larry's overtime, additional help that we hired, and any supplies that we need to maintain the facilities, if that's the direction it goes.
yeah, I mean, depending on what we can do in the HVAC and what we see for proposals, we may not need the air purifiers, because it'll be included into the system. But that is something that we don't have answers for yet. But it potentially could be, but it could be something that could be eliminated because it's handled some other way. So I guess for me, how do we get the information that we need for regarding HVAC upgrades? I mean, what process should we have? Should we, I think we're gonna need some help, but we're also gonna need a request for proposal, not so much a hard quote, but saying this is what we have. Or are we gonna do consideration of qualifications type thing, or proposal, and then we're gonna say, okay, yeah, this is what you quoted, but we say, okay, this is the direction we wanna go with, the people we wanna go with. I don't know what the answer is, because depending on what's proposed, you might like the system, but you may not feel comfortable with the people that are proposing it. On the other hand, you might be comfortable with the people proposing it, but you want to go with a different system that you may see that's presented to you.
So I guess from a logistical standpoint, does it make sense for us to put out an RFP for that advisory position? Not that I want to, RFP the process to death, but do you want to have people propose, here's what I can do for you in this role as advisor, to come in and look at the scope of what you need done and then help you write that RFP? Because while I have a short list of folks I might be able to call, I don't have a long list. And so if you're looking to open that up to see who's willing to come in to do that,
I don't think there's a long list.
I would
As far as
agree with you.
expertise. As far as, like I said, I see it as two different things. I see it as somebody that helps us get to that group of people that may be the expert in HVAC that fits with us. Because you could have a guy that's an expert in this area, and that's what he wants to sell you. And you got another guy that's expert in heat pumps, and that's what he wants to sell you. And another guy's a tin knocker, and that's what he wants to sell you. So they all might be experts in what they're used to and what they have knowledge of, but that doesn't mean it's the best for us. So
Right, so, I think what you're looking for is somebody who's going to be able to kind of guide through the scope. That's what I'm hearing. Or are you looking to find a guy who knows each of those things and just bring them in and listen?
I think,
go ahead, Tim.
so I looked at, and I know we tabled it, but I looked at the proposal Jeff sent us on the Little Red Schoolhouse. Is he an excavator? No. But did he most likely go to an excavation company to get his prices in the quote? Most likely. I guess my vision is, and I don't know the answer to it, but what do our buildings need? Is it $250,000 worth of upgrades? Is it $1 million? Is it $7 million? We don't know. If we go to a contractor, we're going to need $3.5 million worth of upgrades because they know we got $3.5 million to spend. So I think with Jeff, what we do is we at least get a vision of what do we need? And I got no problem investing what we need for the health of the kids. But if we're going to spend $1 million on Henry Wilson for heating upgrades, I want to know that we had to spend that $1 million.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any question there. There are some pieces that I'd like to bring up, not in this setting.
Yep.
Sorry, I missed that. I was daydreaming. Go ahead. What would you just say? Busted a mask.
I'd like to bring up some pieces in regard to that, but not in this setting, in non-public.
Yep. Safety and
To which
security?
thing?
In regard to having someone in that position overseeing.
Okay.
Well, I've stated this as before, but regarding the decision regarding Jeff Greenhaw, I mean, I'm going to abstain from voting because I'm currently utilizing his service in my new construction of my building, and I think he certainly has some good aids, gives some assistance, but I will be abstaining from a vote regarding contracting his services. That being said, but I'm not going to recuse myself because it's not a conflict for me, and somebody needs to run the meeting. But I will say, I don't have a problem with having him help us on a by the hour basis because that would be a benefit. And if we were to spend a little bit of money in him assisting us to find those professionals that we need to get these quotes from, I think that would be wise. If he says, that's not my expertise, or call these 5 guys, and that's what it is, that's what it is. If it's, I can run around and assist you with herding these contractors with Larry around the building, that may be beneficial. So, yes, we need HVAC experts. We need people who have expertise, and we need to pick the best one for our project.
I wouldn't
And
argue
we've got to
with you a
get them
bit on that.
And we got to get them to the table. How we get there? You know, I'm just throwing it out there. We need people to assist us. He's assisted us in the past. We're going to need additional people over him. And that's all I got to say. I think we should use the people we've used and been successful to get these people and proposals to the board to say, this is what we need to do. I mean, Brian has experience where in his district. There's some people he may have worked with that certainly we'll look at. And other people, I don't have any expertise in this area, so I can't bring anybody to the table. So that's why I'm saying we need help. Because little Charlie King.
I don't disagree with you that we need help.
So
Absolutely.
I can help you, maybe Walmart picking up a new window air conditioner.
We know who to call.
And yes, we do need to get started sooner than later. But I want to make sure that we get kind of feeling our way to the end path that makes sense to us before we get down and says, hey, we got this great big proposal, we're running out of time, so we got to take it. And it's really not the best fit in the long term because we need to become an educated buyer. So to
No
become an
question.
educated buyer, we need to have these proposals by these experts to find out what works for us. So we need to get started sooner or later. So, I mean, maybe at the next meeting, you based upon this discussion, you can brainstorm, this is what we heard, and this is what we're proposing as far as a starting path to get to those end goals. You know, doesn't necessarily be, it's gonna be a straight line, but if we head in the right direction, we'll change course to get to the end result. And like I said, I agree that I'd like to see certainly more money in this educationally, and hopefully we can do the building upgrades by being smart buyers at the same time.
Certainly not opposed to putting the money into education, Charlie.
So, I guess I'll make a motion.
Well, it's
can't
a
do a
workshop.
Yeah,
Can't.
Okay, once we come out, I will.
I mean, anything else you guys want to add? I mean, it's good information.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, it seems to be, you know, as you look at the funding sources, we're well on our way to kind of solidifying ESSER 1 with what we got. ESSER 2, we've got a lot of stuff that's in the pipeline that we've already approved, some stuff we got to finalize. Hopefully the door one will be next.
I anticipate we'll probably have that for next week.
Now, there was no way to put the locks in because it didn't fit.
The locks, we have a public hearing next Monday to do that out of this
Okay.
Safety and Security Trust Fund.
And these doors, okay, yeah, I go back.
So we can pay for the doors, we just can't pay for the locks.
And also, I'm hoping that our generator is going to come in under budget from that 150, so it's going to be some additional funds there.
I just threw a padding in there because it's prevailing wages, so.
Right.
I just, you know, I don't want to sound negative. I want to be clear that I recognize the hard work and the numbers that went into putting this in front of us, and I appreciate it. It's a starting point. I just want to have that open conversation of, okay, what about A, B, and C? And I want to be clear that, yeah, I want to save the taxpayers money on infrastructure improvements we can do, but my priority as a school board member is I also want to see our educational standing statewide increase and our kids get the best education we can deliver.
I mean, this is an opportunity that we can backfill some of the short-term needs with this money, where we can. And where we can't, we can hopefully find in other ways to get us to where we really would like to be, curriculum-wise, accreditation-wise, far as testing scores, and I guess participation levels of our students, because that seems to be at times a challenge to get students motivated in their own education, and that would help everything, and how do we do that? And is there some way that this can assist that? Which boils down into truancy, when we have people that don't come because they don't feel challenged or excited. But
So I'll make a motion that we end the workshop and go back into public session.
Second.
unless you guys got anything else.
I was just going to ask Mr. Chair, were you going to see if anybody in the public was going to?
Well, the public participation will be once you go back into public
Yeah.
session.
Oh, I thought you were going
Well,
to change it.
before we,
You
And you don't do a motion, you just
you just go back.
go back out of the
Yeah.
workshop.
well, I guess I'm not ready to go back unless you guys have got unless you guys are all set, unless you got anything additional you want to add to this.
I mean, we've got our guidance, which is,
I think we've got some more guidance. I think, I can't stress enough that if I'm going to post the positions, I really need to do that within the next week or two.
Well,
And I understand that.
I don't have an issue with those positions. So if you're saying, do you need consent authorization from us? To me, you're in charge of the education, and this is what you're saying you need for people. Okay, and this is coming out of this fund. I'm like, that's what we need for people, to fill what we have for deficiencies. Okay, let's do it. My focus is going to be, okay, this is a short term. How are we going to accomplish the same things educationally
Moving
when
forward.
this funding disappears?
Yep.
And saying, you're saying these are where the holes, and these are the people we need to fix these voids. I'm going to go with it.
Okay.
So, we can have that discussion in, regular session, and I don't think there's been any discussion by the board members saying, I disagree, I think we need a science teacher.
And these positions were, the math interventionist at the high school was not discussed at learning loss, but these other positions were part of the learning loss discussion.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, your thoughts on those positions?
I'm all in favor of the positions, and I don't have any problems with your post, and then we'll do that in a motion in public. I just want to make sure that my overall opinion is we're finding the balance with learning loss versus construction. and what makes sense. And part of it is us not being able to identify, or even Brian for that matter, what that heating and ventilation number is.
Right.
And I don't want to tie up
Right.
$3.5 million for 2 years to find out, hey, we only need $750,000.
Right. And-
I would be happier to succeed educationally and have to go to taxpayers and said, yep, I gotta have some money for HC upgrades because we spent too much out of education, but we succeeded, and we gotta come and raise it through taxation to finish this project. I'm okay, I can do that. I can sell that. But we need to get to where, these short-term goals, we need to push ourselves to be more successful, because everybody will benefit, the students, the teachers, the staff, the community.
Or find the happy balance.
Right. Right. Okay.
And we're close. I mean, there's a lot of hard work. It's good work. I don't want to sound negative. You did a good job in what you gave us for data tonight. We just need more work, and I agree with what you're saying on the teacher's position. I'm all for it.
Thank you.
So is everyone else set to end the workshop? Oh, go ahead, Tim.
My only question is on the, and you can, I guess my question is, we can post those positions, we're gonna do them, but we gotta get that process of the committee in place if we're gonna fund them under Easter 3.
Right. Now,
But we can still post for the positions.
we can post the positions, and they could be potentially funded under
Easter
Easter
2, okay.
So, I mean, we have that latitude to switch, but then if that's the case, then what would need to go in Easter 3 would be the balance to make that up to get to the 20%. And I think if we're looking at, because this would be 1 year's funding for those teachers to get it going.
But
And if-
based upon that, wouldn't we just need the committee in place before those teachers start receiving pay?
Well, it depends upon, yes, if they just kind of put their blessing on it, and if for some reason they were to say no, it could still come out of Easter 2, except that, keeping in mind that our first payroll for teachers is going to be in August. So, you know.
So you're saying
it's
we
quicker
have
than
to
not.
form the committee,
Right?
and then these positions need to be approved under ESSER 3?
If we're going to say these can only go under ESSER 3, if I swap them, they could go under ESSER 2. We should be fine there. And if we had other pieces that needed to go into 3 to make up the 20%, the other piece that you've mentioned is the after-school programming, which, using ballpark funding, when we ran FAME, the entire program was around $250,000, and that included after-school programming and summer programming. Right now, we're partnering with CAP, so even if I took that whole amount as a yearly, which it won't be that much, if we're going to add the academic programming to those pieces, I know that it's not going to be more than 150, and I think it will probably be less than that. So if you're looking for a ballpark of where it could go there, I think frankly it's going to be closer to 100, because you're not running a 10-week summer program that is not necessarily academic, it's field trip based. So, kind of to give that other number that I know you were looking for, where would this be and what might we need to ballpark? It could actually be the air purifiers. Go
So-
to 2 years.
So, I guess we've got to determine what this committee needs to look like and get it filled.
That's easy enough. We'll have that. We'll have the structure, get the research done tomorrow.
And then have it on our agenda for next week to say,
We can put it on the agenda for next week, or if I know what the structure needs to be, I can put out the call for membership, and then we,
yeah, I certainly don't have a problem if we know we're going to have the community members.
we know we have to
Or
have
we're going to
it.
have somebody from the budget committee or whoever it is. I don't have any problem with notices going out immediately to see if somebody's interested.
It's going to be stakeholders. It's not going to say it has to be a budget committee member, it
Well,
has
I'm
to be, it
just
has to be. But
Right.
if there are groups that you want to see included, that would help us if you want to toss that on the table now. I've heard Budget Committee.
Yeah. That was one suggestion, but if we recess the workshop, we can make that decision by motion.
That's
That's
correct.
if we have the information on what the makeup needs to be.
We can make up a motion that covers both. There's a motion on the floor.
So is everyone else set to end the workshop? Okay, so at this point, we'll end the workshop, and we're going to go, I'm going to make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Perfect. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Like kissing cousins, you know? Probably related.
Yeah, there's number 2.
Hey, you know, the truth is always works. You might not like what it is, but truth always works.
Give him something to talk about.
So we're getting back, we just finished our workshop, and We do have some non-public scheduled, but under regular business, as far as getting back to the positions, like I said, I have no problem with the positions that you've recommended. So I don't know if you're looking for a motion from the board to post the positions of,
I'm gonna make a motion authorizing the superintendent to research the requirements of the committee and do the public outreach for the formation of that committee to bring back to the board with any interested volunteers. I said early in the meeting, I think budget committee participation, if somebody on the board wants to volunteer, I'm open to that. Any of the selectmen or any of the other town committees, if they want to volunteer, I'm open to that. But specifically, we've got to fill whatever the requirements are of
Right.
of
Absolutely.
the actual funding source. And one of those, if I recall correctly, is parents.
Yes, always.
So, but my motion is going to authorize you to do what you feel you need to do in order to posting and getting that information back to us for appointments.
regarding formation of a
Committee.
That was seconded?
I just did.
Okay, I heard it somewhere. Discussion. Not hearing any discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
So my second motion would be to authorize the superintendent to post the recommended positions that came out of learning loss, which I think we've already approved, plus the
No, they
addition.
had not been approved.
They hadn't been approved by this board?
Nope, they were, I brought them forward. You had said you couldn't remember them. I had the minutes there, and they got tabled.
I think you'd just be cleaner to go from the ESSER 3.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the superintendent to post those positions as vacant
Recommended?
vacant positions to,
Second.
So for the discussion, I will say, what's that?
I'd like to echo what you said earlier. Are you going to say that again? Or what-
I was just going to make the list
Oh,
for the public. So those lists of those positions that we'd be adding to be paid under ESSER 3 funding for 2 years would be,
Well, but we're going to post it as a one-year position to start with.
Okay.
Because I'm not giving somebody a 2-year contract under our CBA. We can't do that.
okay? That's fine?
Yep.
But those positions are truant officer, part-time, social worker, full-time, which is currently
It's a contracted service.
contract position,
Yeah.
2 English language arts teachers, a math intervention for Farmington High School, and a math intervention for Valley View.
And it'd actually be math/ELA for Valley View.
And some of these are currently filled? Or no?
The social worker is a contracted service position that we would maintain what we have had for that service. The math ELA at Valley View, I do have someone currently in the position who is interested in remaining in the position, and I'm fine with that.
So by the motion,
But I could post the positions that are open.
right, it would be,
The new
because your motion is to post any of those positions that are not filled?
well, the superintendent to post what she's required to post.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
The may need to be filled. So any other discussion on the motion? Joel, you had something?
just briefly to echo what Charlie's concern was earlier, and the question was earlier, is let's look at a contingency plan.
Yes.
Whether it be we get someone in the position for 2 years who does some staff training in case we can't absorb all these into the budget, which I
Right.
think is pretty likely, not all of them at once. We do some training, whatever it is, so maybe the service can continue, not necessarily the position.
Correct.
It-
Nope, understood.
Any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes
Who was the
4-0.
second on the motion? Thank you, Josh.
Josh. So, getting back to our agenda, some of the things we've tabled, that's till next meeting. Do we have any, I guess the only thing we got left is a public comment and any other business before the board. Right, Ruth Ellen?
That's what I understand.
Okay. Making sure I didn't lose my place. At this point, I'll open up any additional public comment for the night. Does anybody? There's nobody in the audience except Diana. She's quietly working on her.
We have some people online, but
I-
I don't see anybody unmuted at this point.
So at this point, does anyone else have any public business? Not hearing any, I will make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A:3, 2, A, B, and C for nominations and resignations.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for watching and have a good night.